Welcome to Reconciling SaaS, the interview series where I talk to accountants with innovative business models and growth strategies who are showing what success looks like in the industry. I'm Guy Pearson. I'm a recovering accountant. I'm the founder and CEO of Ignition. And today we're joined by Lorilyn Wilson, owner of Lake Oswego Tax and founder of Madwoman Media. Welcome, Lorilyn. Can you give us a quick overview of accounting industry and journey to date?
Yes.
Quick.
And I feel like I've told it so many times. I'll try and give like the 2-minute version, maybe even 1 minute.
Perfect.
So did not go to college thinking I would ever go into accounting. I didn't actually even know what a CPA was. I was a college athlete, so I picked the easiest major possible, which for me was political science. And if you know anything about poli-sci majors in college, a lot of them end up going to law school. And I took my first constitutional law class and I was like, absolutely not. This is not for me. And so after I graduated from college, I went to college out of state. I moved back home and I just got a job at a really nice athletic club here doing like administrative assistant stuff. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I was super bored and I was like, okay, I want to make more money. I want to do work that's interesting. What should I do? And it was actually my ex-husband's sister-in-law at the time. I was like, what do you do? And she's like, I'm a CPA. And I said, what's a CPA? I like literally had never heard of a CPA. Yeah, I know. Well, so growing up, my dad was a doctor. So I was very, very familiar with the professional. So familiar with it. I knew I did not want to go into it because he's like, don't do it. It's horrible. Don't do it. So I was like, okay, not doing that, not doing an attorney. And so she was and I think she still is an internal auditor at like a really big insurance company. So she's, making sure all the salespeople aren't like committing fraud with their company cards and stuff. But she tells me what a CPA is. I go home. I'm like, Google education requirements. Like, what do I need? Like, how long do I need to go back to school? How much is this going to cost me? I had literally not taken one accounting class. Like I didn't know a debit from a credit. I know none of it. But I saw there was a online post-baccalaureate program, which I only needed 2 terms at the community college to get it. Like I needed to do 2 terms at the community college, and then I could get into this 3-term program. It was all online. It was with like a local university here, and it was only like 10 grand. So I was like, this is a no-brainer. Like this is my ROI calculation I'm doing, which is like a very accountant thing to do.
It is a hugely accounting thing to do, but okay, so you took the course.
Yes, yeah. And so I did that. And then the other thing I was also thinking about when I made that decision was, so I graduated college in 2007, which if you remember what happened in 2008, we had the big financial crash here. And did it affect you guys much in Australia, or was it kind of more isolated to America?
We were a bit more insulated in the foreign effects because our mining industry was booming, mostly with sales of, say, just steel to China, which was booming at the time as well. But it did affect some of our banks, but we weren't as exposed as you all.
Yeah. And so I was really trying to think of, okay, it's not if another crash comes, it's when another crash comes. So what's a profession and a job I can have, which will be recession proof? So that was also another consideration is it something that has a lot of flexibility and I'll always have a job for it? And it like literally like all the boxes, yes, yes, yes. And so I was like, all right, it's time to be an accountant.
Okay, wow. So many questions, so many. So thinking about all of that, how do you feel about the choices you made and how quickly did you get your ROI on the 10K?
Oh, great questions. So first, I feel really great about it, especially I know we're going to get into a little bit the accounting pipeline problem, like job security. But in terms of how fast I recouped that 10K, so the first accounting job I had was Satan and Company. They were paying me like a couple $1,000s more than I was making as an admin. But even then I was like, oh, this is so much money. And then after a year, I left that firm. And then I would say probably 2 years after that was when I felt like my salary had increased enough that I'd, had made more at that point than I would have made elsewhere, plus recouped, the $10,000.
How do you pronounce Oswego? And apologies if I'm butchering that.
It's pronounced Oswego.
Oswego, so Lake Oswego Tax, and then you've got Madwoman Media, and they're the 2 things that you're out in front of now. Is Lake Oswego a place?
It is a place. So it's actually a place in New York and it's a place in Oregon. So Oregon is named in New York. Yeah. And it's a lake. There's a lake and there's a town and it's lovely.
And so I feel like the way you came up with that name is fairly logical and straightforward. Was there any thought that went into that? Because we're moving away from the sort of, LorilynCPA.com kind of thing. And you named yours after the place that you inhabit. Was it as simple as that domain name is free, or was there a method to the madness, which there's a little dovetail into where I'm going to go next?
Yes, no, there's definitely, everything I do is very strategic. Let's get that out there, everyone. If it looks like I'm flying off the handle and doing something weird, there's not. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. So I'm not sure if you know, there's a wonderful gentleman named Martin Moles. He's connected with Kristen Keats. She's a really good friend of mine. She owns Sherwood Tax, which is like 20, 30 minutes away. And then her and Martin are business partners in several things. One of them, this is a free shout out, they own an offshoring company in Mexico, and it's called Cadencia. So it's in Guadalajara. But Martin lives in Lake Oswego. Martin's lived here like his whole life, grew up here. The one thing you need to know about Lake Oswego is it's a small, like very wealthy town in Oregon, probably like the wealthiest. It's a suburb of Portland. So it's a town that's synonymous with wealth, is kind of a good way to think of it. And so I moved to Lake Oswego from Portland at the end of last year. And it was actually at QuickBooks Connect 2022. We're out at the cabana, because we always get a cabana, and I'm chatting with Martin, and we're talking about how all these CPAs are retiring and there's a huge opportunity. And Martin goes, Lorilyn, he's like, you could run Lake Oswego if you wanted to. He's like, all the older CPAs are retiring. There's such a vacuum occurring. You could step in and fill that and, have as many clients as you would want forever. And at the time, my firm name was Due North PDX. And so I was like, at the cabana, I said, I wonder if Lake Oswego Tax is available. So right then I pulled it up on Namecheap. Yep, it's available as the DBA. The URL is available. I bought it right then. I hadn't even technically moved to Lake Oswego yet, but I bought it right then. And so still doing the rebranding journey. I mean, what's happened is I've been so busy, I haven't needed to publicly advertise it all. But when I decide to, which I'm actually planning on in the next month or two, and we can talk about that in a little bit, is Lake Oswego Tax, like Lake Oswego, again, synonymous with kind of high-end wealth, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the vibe I'm going for. So it's like anyone in Oregon, if you hear Lake Oswego, that conjures an image in somebody's head. Like everyone knows what that means. They know what it means having a business there. So
Madwoman Media, what does that do that doesn't get done in Lake Oswego? And tell me about the naming convention around that one and the strategic element.
So Madwoman Media is a way for me to help other accountants create content online. What that consists of right now is just a paid newsletter. So every month they pay a subscription fee, and then every week they get a newsletter with like 5 accounting and tax topics, which then they can take and white label as their own. And so they can use that in their own newsletter. They can make videos, they can make blog posts. It doesn't matter. How that name came about was, this is actually the second iteration of this concept. The first iteration of it was called Heater Media. And are you a poker dude at all?
I know what a heater is. It's like a hot streak, right? Is that correct?
Exactly. So isn't that like a fun little name, Heater Media? It's like you're going on a winning streak. Yeah. So that partnership blew up terribly in March of last year. And I'd only been running the newsletter for like 4 months at that point. I'd been running it on my own email system, and I was the content at everything I did. And so I said, I don't need this person. I'm just going to restart it up under my own name. And so I was very mad at the time. And I listened to a lot of Taylor Swift. So she has a song on her folklore album called Madwoman. And so I was like, all right, Madwoman Media. And it kind of rolls off the tongue. It's a fun name. And I was able to do like some fun branding stuff with it. I love designing and creating stuff. So I went with, like, when I thought of Madwoman, I thought of red and anger. So red was kind of the main color I went with. And then 2 now it's just fun. But
how's it going? You relaunched?
Oh yeah. So Madwoman Media launched it in late May of this year. And yeah, it's rolling. I have over 100 subscribers, which is pretty good considering I have not done much marketing for it. And that's something I'll probably pick back up in the new year, but I've just been so busy with work. That's kind of been secondary to, the stuff that clients are paying me for. So.
Well, let's talk more about running firm from here on in, and we framed it up before the call around the CPA pipeline process. We've just talked about your experience, how you went from poli-sci to law, and then about face because your sister-in-law is a CPA. I think then you've got tweets around moving into education or the academic space to try and help solve this.
Mhm.
How bad is it on one standpoint, and two, what do you think is the best thing they could do tomorrow to help change some of the enrollments, if you like, on CPAs, particularly in the US?
Well, how bad is it? If you're a CPA, it's not bad at all because we have more clients than we know what to do with, and we have a lot of pricing power. Where, obviously we run into issues is if we do want to expand, trying to find talent to come in and hire people. That has been actually a lot of my hesitation the past 2 years when I was thinking, what do I want my firm to look like? How big do I want to grow it? I was very hesitant to want to grow it because I know finding talent, at least domestically, is hard and it's expensive. So I actually did just start onboarded a offshore employee from Cadencia. Shout out to Kristen and Martin. But yeah, out of Mexico. So just doing accounting functions, and they have an interest in learning tax. So I think the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to force a lot of firms to start looking offshore for stuff, which is, totally fine in the sense that there's tons and tons of talent out there. So I think it's going to force the industry to pivot to more international support. And I think, though, at the same time, for the people who do decide to enter the industry, I think you're going to have a lot more opportunity. Like, it's not going to be as competitive. So actually, for people who do decide to do it, it's going to be a great career choice for them, like even better than it was for me 15 years ago when I decided to do it.
We've had a lot of conversations about offshoring, nearshoring, and creating capacity so that you can make changes. Particularly, a lot of folks are thinking about it as the great enabler to completely overhaul their tech stack and try and find as much automation, AI, etc. as possible. Like, is that sort of your framework as well? It's like the stuff that needs to get done that eventually want to automate will create more capacity for that to be done, and then hopefully bring this person/people on the journey with us and train them up to be advisors with the tech enabled piece, so you have scalability within your business. Is that where your mindset's at, or is it a different lens?
Yes, no, absolutely. So actually, while I was at QBC, I didn't even go to their booth, but I've just heard so many colleagues speak positively about it. I came to the conclusion that I needed to switch over my project management system to something that was better with more automations, more integrations. And so I ended up switching over to Carbon. Before that, when it was just like two of us, are you familiar with Notion?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went on like a manic 20-hour binge in the middle of tax season last year and completely built out a project management system, like with interconnected database. I was watching all these YouTube videos and I was doing that in there, but there's just, if you're familiar with Notion, the integrations are not easy. The building stuff, you have to like customize everything. So it takes a long time to do stuff. And I just, had to coming to Jesus moment with myself where I realized if I want to grow and grow efficiently and enable my staff to work better as I add them, I have to get a better project management system that will feel that. And so my goal with that is for the next year to be able to add clients and not have to add staff. So that's my hope, is the next year we can roughly, with tax returns and accounting clients, double in size and not have to add another body.
And sort of rolling on from that, and you mentioned pricing power before, you're involved in our call for change movement that we kicked off. So huge thanks for being a part of it. Obviously, the company exists, and that campaign is kind of a dovetail on from that to help people get paid and not worry about cash flow, but also have clarity between the CPA or the accountant bookkeeper client relationship. What are you seeing in the industry in terms of people, I guess, making the change? Have you seen any of it come more to the forefront? I saw a whole lot of sessions at QBC around pricing and moving to CAS, which I guess sort of enforces the move to upfront. Is that what you're seeing, or are you seeing something a bit more pronounced off the back of, I guess, changes in the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think on the CAS side, like people are pretty bought into like you charge at the beginning of the month, for the work you haven't done yet. And I think that's like no one is like, I bill in arrears for CAS. I just haven't heard of that. So I feel on the CAS side, people are pretty on board with, okay, we can bill monthly, we can bill up front, yada, yada. I still see so much resistance on the tax side of people. And this is what they always say. Well, I don't have trouble collecting. People always pay. And I'm like, but you're like floating their cash essentially. Like you are incurring costs to do work. And then regardless if they pay on time or not, like you're still out that money. Like if we're doing like, a $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. And some of like the feedback I've heard is people being like, well, my clients wouldn't like that. They wouldn't pay that. So what I do for tax season is I require, because I don't know exactly how much the return is going to cost, because pretty much I have a base fee saying it's minimum going to be this, and then there's going to be price increases based on these forms. So depending what the actual tax return looks like. So it's kind of like a form-based billing. But what I do is I require a deposit up front when they sign their engagement letter. So I'm collecting, like I did a little over half of the base fee last year. So I'm collecting money up front just to get their foot in the door. And then I'm doing the final billing on the end. And so it's like two great things are happening with that. Number one, I'm getting cash in my pocket today. So I'm not having to, take out money to like front any costs. Cause that actually happened to me 2 years ago before I was doing this. I wanted to put about $12,000 in marketing costs. And I was like, shoot, I'm not going to see that money for another month and a half. So I then ended up taking out a short-term loan, and paying an extra $1,500 in interest. When in reality, I'm like, I just could have got that money up front with deposits, and then what I do is once the return's done, I tell them, all right, your return's done, pay your bill to see it. And so I make them actually pay their final bill before I'll even release their draft return. And I got zero pushback. No one said a thing. No one cared.
The whole, like, you were part of our call for change movement, and you posted it online, and unsurprisingly, you got a whole bunch of negative, and I think I'm looking at Twitter here in our prep docs, like people are pushing back on you sharing how you think the industry should change. Why do you think it's such a polarizing, almost like regurgitatory experience in terms of what you receive back based on sharing your views? Do you think people just hate change?
Well, I think the accounting industry is one in particular that people fall susceptible to this with, is that they think, okay, here's the thing, you can be very profitable in accounting by doing the billable hour. Like you can be. And so it's one of those things, it's like, well, I'm making money. Why would I do it any differently? So it's the pain isn't there enough for them to want to change. And the thing is, it's like when people are like, I don't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, don't. I don't care. Run your firm however you want.
Sounds like you went through a transition. So like, were you all cloud-based from day one of, sorry, I forget the previous name, but Lake Oswego, or were you partially cloud-based and partially upfront?
Well, so when I was at Satan & Company, it was super old school paper-based, nothing in the cloud, like desktop applications for everything. And then once I moved to Pearson Advisory, which is now called My Collective CPAs, that was almost completely in the cloud. We did have a couple of years of a little more paper-based tax filing where we would have like the folder with like the steps, and it would get passed around, to the preparer, to the reviewer, to the assembler. And then I want to say maybe in 16 or 17, we got away with that. We did away with that completely and went completely cloud-based and paperless for everything. So I would say probably since 17 or 18, I've been living in the cloud.
Now, you are forced to be reckoned with in a powerhouse when it comes to sort of marketing. Clearly, lots of confidence, which is well-deserved and justified as you do so. You've got the not spicy accountant on TikTok. I know we had a session where we had Gary Vee talking about TikTok and YouTube video shorts as a part of the Call for Change campaign. You got 47,000 followers. How did all that get started, and why those mediums, given that you're after now the Lake Oswego group of folks who perhaps maybe not on TikTok?
Yes. Yeah. And so, so my primary platforms are TikTok and Twitter. If you look at my TikTok, I've actually hardly posted in like months, actually most of this year, just because I haven't been actively looking for new clients. And so when I first though got on that and really started posting about tax and accounting advice, it was the beginning of 22. And honestly, it kind of came down to I had COVID. and I was on quarantine and was bored, and I'd created an ebook, and I was like, I wonder if I could sell this ebook on here. I wonder if I can use TikTok as a platform to sell. And so it was just kind of an experiment of that January of 22. I'll say, I'll just start posting some videos and we'll just see what happens. And then within that first month, actually was when I gained like 30,000 followers. So like in 1 month,
Wow.
I went from like a couple thousand followers, because I had a couple videos go viral during quarantine and stuff, like the longer COVID quarantine. But then all of a sudden,
Mm.
like my follower account shot up, and I was like, oh, there really is a, like, people do want this information. And so, but then at the time I didn't have like a sales funnel set up. So then it took me 6 more months to get all that set up before I started actually accepting clients from TikTok. And so just because I'm though not taking clients from them right now, it doesn't mean that funnel's going to be shut forever. So it was more just
Mhm.
kind of an experiment, like what are ways I can use video format to connect and engage with people. So that's like, I would say more than anything, that's been the value for me, is just learning along the way. And then what I'm going to do though with that is, now I know for a fact I can be engaging in video format with tax and accounting advice. Now I want to do a more targeted campaign where I live, and I'm going to use Instagram for that because it's way easier to target with Instagram and Facebook ads. But I'm going to take kind of all that I learned from going viral on TikTok, from making engaging content, from making content I know people want to interact with, and I'm going to take that and then do that with Instagram to actually try and target people more in my area.
What advice would you give to other CPAs, people in our profession who are looking to use video as a medium, and video shorts, particularly to get in front of potential customers or find people to hire or attract, other things to their firm? Like what's the biggest takeaway from your experiments that you've run?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts on that. The first I would say is, don't post without a plan, because otherwise you'll just waste time posting. Like, you really need to have a plan in place. Who am I targeting? What does my ideal client look like? And then if someone watches the video and they're interested, how do they contact me? And that was
Mhm.
the mistake I made from this when I first started. And because you never know when you're going to go viral. Like, it takes one video. I think one of my videos I had like, over 500,000 views on it. Like, what? So you want to be prepared, should that happen, that you have a place for those potential clients to land. The other thing I would say is not to overthink it, in terms of, you don't need fancy equipment, lighting, sound. You don't need that. Like, all you need is your phone. Like, you can go
Mhm.
viral with your phone and standing in front of a window with decent lighting. So it doesn't take you don't want to overthink the tech side of it at first, because if you overthink it, then you'll never do it. Because you'll forever be like, oh, well, I can't do it until I have this. I can't do it until I have that. And then the other thing I would say is just get over yourself, because you're always going to be way more hypercritical of yourself than anyone else is going to be. You'll look at yourself on camera and you'll think, is that what I actually look like? Is that what I actually sound like? Yes. Yes, it is. And and no one cares. That's what you look like and that's what you sound like. But as you keep seeing yourself on video and hearing yourself, then you're like, oh, that's just what I look and sound like. So it no longer becomes a big deal. Ooh, and my fourth bonus one I would say is, people get afraid of what other people might say. And the haters are going to be some of your best content. Like, at my heart, I am a troll, and I will debate and go against someone all day long. And what kind of bums me out is I don't get enough haters. I wish I actually got more. But it's like, anytime haters engage with you, that's perfect. More comments means you're getting in the algorithm more. And then two, though, you can take those comments and you can create content out of it, which is kind of fun to do. Or you can be self-deprecating and kind of show your humor. Like, someone, and this wasn't even like that mean of a comment, but someone called me like IRS Barbie. And I was like, oh, well, the IRS has a referral program, and for all the tax I collect, like, I get a percent, just like, not really joking, but it's like, you can take comments like that and kind of turn them on their head. And so you want to view the haters as an opportunity, not as something to be afraid of. Because at the end of the day, like, who cares what the dude with the .eth username and the monkey avatar thinks? Like, no, their opinion means nothing.
One of the questions I'm curious is, we've had the Women in Accounting running from Ignition for the last number of years. You're an alumni, and made the top 50 in that sort of raising the awareness of women in accounting. Like, what does it mean to you? How do you think it has changed, if anything, your view on helping to raise women in accounting? And where do you think the future of women entering the profession, as we talked about skills shortages, like, how do you think this could help, perhaps, or any other feedback you've got?
Yeah. So first off, when I was told I was nominated, I was like, what? Me? Because I just view myself like I'm just out here shooting from the hip as I go. So I was so honored that someone even thought to put me in that. Because if you look at the people who are on that list, it's incredibly impressive women who've done incredibly impressive things. So first off, I was just so honored that I even made it. So thank you, whoever nominated me. But then second, I think it's great to bring visibility to, number one, the things the women are doing in accounting. And then two, it's also like at the end of the day, I'm always going to relate more to a woman, especially a woman with children, than I will a man, or even a man with children, just because our experience and our journey is so similar. So it's so great to be able to look at women who are doing the things I want to do and knowing, oh, they did it, I can do it. It's kind of like the breaking the glass ceiling. It's like once you see someone else do it, you realize, oh, I can do it too. And then also too, with the way firms have pivoted, and it is, away from the hourly model, it is this more, value-based pricing, it is cloud-based. It's providing a lot more opportunity for women to succeed in the accounting space when it's outside of that old partner model. I don't have to work 80 hours a week to make partner. I can work from home. I don't know if people can see. I'm in my living room. I have pajama pants on. No, I don't. I have jeans on today. But it's like in 3 minutes, my kids are going to bust through the door from coming back from the bus stop. But what's so great is because of how our profession has changed, I can be just as successful as that person who's a partner in a firm now, but I can do it kind of on my terms in a way that supports my lifestyle, supports my family without having, oh, that's them. Do you hear that? I can do it in a way. Hold on. Hold on, I'm gonna get them. This is perfect.
Yeah, no worries. This is not scripted.
I'm gonna make them come say hi.
Hi.
That's my 11-year-old.
G'day from Australia. Hey, mate, how are you?
Good.
Marble, you want to come say hi? That's my 11-year-old and my 8-year-old. I don't know if he wants to be on camera. He's like yelling hi from over there. So case in point, it's perfect. I'm still able to be seen as like a leader in the industry in a way that 10, 20 years ago wouldn't have been possible. So I just think it's awesome that our industry has kind of shifted in a way that supports women a lot more.
We tend to try and wrap things up in two ways. One, I'm about to ask you a bunch of rapid fire questions, which are fill in the blanks. And the last part is effectively almost like hot wings. Have you ever seen that show where it's like, tell us what's coming up in 23, 24 for Madwoman Media and Lake Oswego Tax, and for yourself personally, anything you want to share and how people can contact you. So just laying that up now, because I know you're probably not aware that that's coming. And so I'll hit you with the fill in the blanks questions, and then would love to give you the opportunity to take it away and share with people what's going on. So fill in the blanks. My favorite thing to do on vacation is?
Lay in the sun.
Where's your favorite place you've laid in the sun?
Ooh, I like Palm Springs. Palm Springs is really nice.
Next fill in the blank question. On the weekends, you'll find me.
I feel like the cool thing to say is like, oh, out on the lake. But in reality, I'm like cleaning up after my kids, doing laundry, doing chores, working. It's not glamorous or sexy, everyone. I don't live a glamorous or sexy life. So.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. So that's the last of my fill in the blanks questions. So once again, I want to wrap up and say thank you for jumping on with me today. Tell us what's going on in your world of all the many hats you wear that you want to share with the audience, both 23 and 24, but the floor is over to you.
Yes. So for 2024, I'm actually taking a step back from like traveling and conferences and strictly focusing on firm building. And part of me wants to just build a firm out of spite. So I might be the year of building my spite firm. And to me, that means, kind of railing against these toxic, gross dinosaur firms, which treat their people like crap, make them work tons and tons of hours. That makes me so mad. And I want to do the opposite of it. So my motivation to keep growing and adding workers is to bring people on board who can be in a much better environment. So that's my spite firm I want to do. And then for Madwoman Media, I'm going to start expanding out and actually offer a fuller range of social media services for accountants. So actually helping them create content, helping them come up with ideas, editing, filming, posting, all that type of stuff. So I'm finishing my own personal stuff, like with my own firm. And there's actually another person who I'm helping them launch an online course right now. And so hopefully within like the next 2 months, those will be rock and rolling. People can actually like go look at my work and see what I'm doing in real time. And then we'll start offering those to other firms. Cause I do have people reaching out wanting help, but I'm like, just give me a couple more months, give me a couple more months. So that's where I see Madwoman Media going in the next year.
Have you bought the spitefirm.com at this point? Or is that something you should go do right now?
The
Spitefirm.
Oh, Spitefirm?
No.
Don't threaten me with a good time. I might go on Namecheap right now.
No, I really want to thank you once again. I think if folks want to reach out to you and discuss either Madwoman Media or Lake Oswego Tax / Spitefirm 24, they can reach out to you on LinkedIn, Twitter, anywhere else.
I would say Twitter is probably the best. I check LinkedIn about once every 4 months. So I'll have people come up to me and be like, I messaged you on LinkedIn. And they're like, I'm like, when? They're like 2 months ago. I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, I haven't been on this. So well, if you're not looking for a speaker reply, otherwise Twitter is by far going to be the fastest way to find me.
I wish you all the best 24. Sounds like I won't see you at a conference next year, so I'll catch you in 2025 in person.